Everyone has a story. I get them to tell it. Welcome to the Aron Bender Podcast. Conversations with media personalities about their personal and professional lives and journeys. Really appreciate your support, whether you're watching on YouTube or nightly at 11 p.m. Pacific or 2 a.m. Eastern on DB&A TV at dbndatelevision.tv or streaming with the DB&A TV app on Amazon Fire, Roku, and Apple TV, or listening on your favorite platform. Before we get to my conversation with Ben Mallard, a little about my story. I'm a widowed dad of two girls who just lost their mom, a grieving husband, a man in recovery trying to reconnect with the world with fresh eyes, faith, and perspective, a college journalism professor, a white guy in a world of injustice, a 20-year broadcast media veteran who had his dream job and then lost it. A year and a half ago, God gave me a gift, an opportunity to stop, step back, and breathe so I could learn about love, vulnerability, forgiveness, grace, self-care, patience, and understanding. I'm fortunate to be able to call Ben Mallard a friend. He does overnights on Fox Sports Radio, and while, he is a success in overnights, he is certainly not an overnight success. Ben's been at this for more than 20 years, was a pioneer in the blogging arena. We start off talking about his Clippers and our Dodgers, what the Angels need to do to get Trout and Otani deep into the playoffs, maybe even just make the playoffs. Let's start with that. We talk about LeBron and the Lakers and the platform that athletes now have. We also talk about losses he and I have suffered in the last few months. His dad and my wife. Let's catch up now with Ben Mallard. Let's just do it because I want to start, Ben Mallard. I want to start here talking about your Clippers.
Yeah, I was debating I have actually a Clipper hat I wore right here. You see that? Aaron,
nice.
On the podcast.
Nice.
Very nice. But I decided
that looks too new. That looks like a bandwagon hat.
No. This is an old hat. This is the old logo. You see that? That's the old
that's
logo
right. That's true.
There.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. This is the classic. See, because that's when I became a Clipper fan. So I can't wear the new logo. It's too hip. It's too cool. But yeah, listen, I'm loving it. I mean, listen, the Lakers lost. You know, I'm a historic Laker hater. So I'm happy about that. And the Clippers, the way they came back, they were on life support and they bounced back and rose up from the ashes. It's outstanding, but it's only the first round. So I have to be measured here somewhat, Aaron. I cannot be over the top because they still have to beat the Utah Jazz in the second round of the playoffs, which start Tuesday night in Salt Lake City. So it's right around the corner here.
This is not a Clippers team that we're used to, that kind of gritty, grinded out in 7 games. There's no way that you were 100% positive that they'd pull off that Game 7 win.
No, I was confident. I wasn't 100% confident, but I was confident. And I'm going to tell you why, right? Because unlike the Doc Rivers era, like they were willing to bench. They benched Patrick Beverly, who was one of their rotation guys.
I was surprised by that. Yeah,
and Zubats, and so those guys didn't play any kind of leading role at the end of the series. That's something Doc Rivers would have never done. But the main reason for optimism, there were guys in the Mavericks that were playing beyond their means, Aron Bender. Tim Hardaway Jr., an average NBA player, played like his father, the Hall of Fame level player back in the day in the NBA. So you figured at some point there was going to be a regression to the mean. Would it happen actually in time for the Clippers to win? And it did. And Kawhi Leonard also. I credit the playoff Rondo death stare when in game, I think it was game 5, when the 3-point shot by Kawhi Leonard was terrible. And I remember they were walking off the court and Rondo gave him the death stare. And since that point, the last 2 games, Kawhi Leonard shot 70% and was amazing. He was great. He was as good as advertised.
What is your prediction, or what are you going to look for? What are Ben's keys to the game when we go into the series against the Jazz?
You want to go deep in the bag of cliches? No, listen, any series, it starts with Kawhi Leonard and also Paul George to some degree. Those guys have to play well, and those are matchup problems against the Utah Jazz. So the Clippers actually have an advantage there. And you don't want anyone outside the norm for Utah playing above their means, kind of like we saw with Dallas. I mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. played really well. And, somebody like Joe Ingles of the Jazz starts knocking down 3-point shots and he can't miss. And he's like Larry Bird or Michael Jordan. Then you're obviously in a world of trouble there. But head to head, I think it goes 6-7 games, and I'm going to give the edge. I'm slightly biased here, but I'm going to give the edge to the Clippers.
Considering how the Lakers ended up losing because they lost Anthony Davis, can't really be surprised.
Well, why you can be surprised because LeBron James, remember Aaron better, LeBron James said he was going to put the Lakers on his shoulders,
right,
when Anthony Davis got hurt. And then he took a ride on, we call on the overnight, the vomit comet, LeBron did, and just went to hell the last couple of games. And the signature moment, the thing I will remember from the Lakers losing to the Suns was when they were getting their doors blown off in Phoenix, and with 6 minutes, a little less than 6 minutes to go in the game, LeBron walking in defeat back to the locker room while the rest of his teammates sat on the bench. And of course, the NBA media, they always cover for LeBron. No, he was getting some treatment. Like, he can't wait another 15 minutes to get the treatment. It's that important. He has to leave while the game's still going on. I mean, it's total ridiculousness is what it is.
And you're wearing a Dodgers hat. It's the first time we've really gotten to talk since the Dodgers took the World Series. Let's talk about how that felt for you as a Dodgers fan, and then let's get into this season.
Well, first of all, it was long overdue. Okay. The Dodgers had, going back to the 90s and the Mike Piazza era, the mid-90s, they had good players. They had playoff teams. They had big-name free agents. They had teams good enough to win the World Series, and they always found a different way to go belly up in the playoffs. And I was there even in the 2000s when Joe Torre was managing, and I remember a game against the Phillies when Matt Stairs hit a moonshot into the pavilion at Dodger Stadium in the late innings there that derailed the Dodger team. But no, it was good. It was great. It was great to see guys actually coming through, especially the way it happened in the playoffs when the Dodgers were buried against the Atlanta Braves, and it looked like they were about to lose again, and they were going to fire this guy, that guy, trade this guy, that guy. I mean, it was going to be open season on the Dodgers. And so for them to come back and win that, and guys actually stepping up, because normally what had happened for the Dodgers is there were like out-of-body experiences by players on the other team, but finally that happened for the Dodgers where Corey Seager couldn't make a mistake for 2 weeks or whatever it was in the World Series. So, and the NLCS. So it was great to see. It was wonderful to see. And
especially as like 90s and the early 2000s, the Dodgers would find ways to lose. They would be up for, 2-1, 3-2 or whatever, and then just completely melt down. So it was nice to see. Now, granted, I know 2017 with the Astros, we could spend a whole nother podcast on that. 2018 with the Red Sox, there's just no way you're beating that team. And so
they were cheating too, though. Don't forget, they were cheating too. The Red Sox were cheating too. They had Alex Cora. They were cheating.
Yes. But it just the idea that they actually pulled themselves out of all of those holes throughout the playoffs, it was so good to see.
Yeah, it was great. And but at this point now they are the Atlanta Braves, right? The Atlanta Braves of the 90s, playoffs every year, World Series a few times, only won one. That's the Dodgers. And Stan Kasten, who's an executive for the Dodgers, his goal was to recreate the Atlanta Braves of that era with the Bobby Cox era. And he's actually done it. But to get better than the Braves, they have to win another World Series.
I need them to recreate the Yankees, not the Braves.
I would agree. Yeah, but see, their thing is like they know as long as they're in the playoffs every year, they can keep raising prices at Dodger Stadium. And eventually a Dodger dog will cost you $27 if they keep going the way they're going. And who knows what's in the Dodger dog these days because it's no longer Farmer John. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, that's the way of the world. But I have not been out to Dodger Stadium since they renovated it, since they allowed fans back. But it looks amazing. I've heard tremendous reviews there. I don't know if you've been out there, but it's.
I haven't yet. No, my sisters-in-law and mother-in-law went to a game about a week after Mother's Day, whatever the homestand was after Mother's Day, and they loved it. They loved it.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends go out there and say, "Oh, you got to get out there. It's amazing." And I'm a little bummed out, Aaron, because last year the All-Star game was supposed to be at Dodger Stadium. They didn't have the All-Star game, and I'm going to name drop here. My guy, Marlins Man. You know that guy that's
yes, absolutely, yes.
Marlins Man's a listener to my overnight show, and he's become acquaintances. Not, I don't know if friends is the right word.
Right.
But
I think Marlins man only has acquaintances. He doesn't have friends. He has acquaintances.
He normally has a harem of beautiful women around him at all times, but occasionally he lets an ugly radio guy hang out with him. And so when Marlins man comes to town, he does it right. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. So a couple years ago, 2019, the Dodgers were playing the Yankees at Dodger Stadium. I get a message, a text from Marlins man. Hey, I'm going to be in town. I want you to be my guest. We'll do it right. So we're sitting like third row behind home plate.
Yep. If you see an orange jersey behind home plate in almost any park, especially Dodger Stadium, it's going to be Marlins man.
Yeah. So it's the Yankees and the Dodgers, it's Sunday night baseball. It's a big game, big series and all that. So I'm the VIP guest of Marlins, man. So I show up there. He's like, listen, we're going to eat. He's got it all planned out. He does it right. He goes in there. He's like a mascot. People want to take pictures with him. They want to talk to him. They want to know what's this guy all about. And so I get there early. We go down, behind home plate. They have that really where the rich people, the 1%ers hang out at Dodger Stadium. And it's the most amazing food. If you've never been there, it's like prime rib. They've got a seafood bar, like all the most amazing foods you could possibly want. And so I go in there with Marlins, man. I'm a pretty simple guy, Aaron. You know me for a few years. I don't need the creature comforts. I don't need to live like a 1%er. So I go in there and, Marlins man's eating the prime rib and he's eating the lobster and all that. And I go over and I'm like in line with all these 10-year-olds who are getting a burger and fries. They have a burger and fry station. And I got back to the table and Marlins man looks at my plate, and I got the palate of an 8-year-old. He's like, "What are you doing? Oh, there's lobster over there."
I'm not paying VIP prices for burgers and fries.
Yeah. So
did you get chicken fingers while you were there?
I love chicken fingers. So to appease Marlins, man, I went back. I will eat prime rib, but it's got to be well done. And they don't at high end places. They don't do it.
They don't do well done. No.
They spit in your eye if you want it well done. So I got some prime rib just so Marlins man would give me a break, and I attempted to eat it against my wishes. I did eat the prime rib. And then when he was busy talking to other people, I snuck some more chicken fingers and hot dogs and things like that. So,
well, I mean, you say you love chicken fingers. You're talking as a man who has chicken fingers named after him.
Yes, in multiple states, by the way. I never won an award. You're an award-winning broadcaster, Aaron Bender. You're a beloved figure in radio in LA history. I never won anything. I don't. The only thing I have is a couple of restaurants one in Kansas, one in Missouri, and one in Colorado have named food dishes after me. And there's also a bar, a truck stop in Colorado that's named a drink after me. But that's it. That's all I have. I have the original, the Ben Mallard chicken fingers, which is in Kansas City, the Kansas City area, which is just down the street from where the Chiefs and the Royals play, which is great. And then there's like a big basket of chicken fingers. I actually went there. They had the restaurant changed names, but I went there years ago. We had the big unveiling, and it was kind of fun. And then there's this place called The Bird, which is we call it the Ballet, if you know what that is, Aaron. There in
yes, the Ballet.
Yes. Yes, the finer things in life. This guy runs this place called The Bird, which is this legendary jiggle joint there in Lawrence, Kansas, and they named the Mallard Fowler after me, which is great. Another chicken sandwich thing. And then in Denver, there's a couple locations that have a chicken sandwich with my name on it. So it's cool. It's a neat little thing. And, that'll last until they let me go, and then they'll change the name. But I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
Before we get away from the hot sports takes that I know Ben Mallard is famous for, I want to find out, you grew up an Angels fan, sneaking into Angel Stadium, sneaking into the Big A to watch that team. What's your take on the Artie Moreno era and how you feel like they're going to do this season? I think Trout is out for a few weeks or whatever it is, but what's your take on whether the Angels can even win with Trout on the roster?
Well, time it's not running out. Trout's still young, but it's, before you know it, how fast time goes by. You're going to wake up and Mike Trout's going to be 34 years old, and you're going to be like, well, we never got him pitching. And, it feels like Joe Mauer in Minnesota signed this forever contract with the Twins, and everyone was all excited. They didn't win anything, but yeah, Artie Moreno it's like the Angels are the mouse on the treadmill that think they're going somewhere, but they're actually not going anywhere. And I have mixed opinions because when I first got into radio, I was the radio stringer guy, the reporter, which I don't even think they have anymore, at least in sports radio. And I covered the Angels and Dodgers and all the teams. And I was out there when Joe Madden was a coach for the Angels. I love Joe Madden. Like, Joe Madden was one of the few guys that would talk to me when nobody, I was the fat radio guy and they hated radio guys and all that. And Joe Madden was always nice. And I never thought in my wildest dreams he would ever manage in the big leagues, because he was always that kind of guy behind the scenes that never, really, they never took seriously.
Yeah, it was real casual. Talk about a player's manager.
Yeah. And then he went to Tampa and obviously they got the World Series, and he goes to the Cubs and wins the World Series and all that. So I'm pulling for Joe Madden. I believe in the shtick of Joe Madden, but you got to get some pitching, and they keep getting guys from the Orioles. Yeah, it's not the 1970s. Jim Palmer's not leaving the Orioles to come pitch for the Angels. The Orioles have been horrible for years. What are you doing?
Cal Ripken is not walking through that door.
Yeah, exactly. Even Mike Mussina, for a more updated reference, is not walking through that door, Aaron. My God.
Although I do feel like if he could walk through that door, he could still get some more quality innings and quality starts than what the Angels are putting out there.
Yeah, he would be an upgrade in his 50s. He would be an upgrade over what the Angels have right now in their starting staff most of the nights. Yeah,
it's so frustrating. I mean, you've got Otani just
lighting
the world on fire this season, and that's it. Yeah. The New Yorkers got Yankees Mets. Okay, they got their Subway Series in the World Series, and only maybe twice in our lifetimes has there even been a possibility of a freeway series. Only once or twice. I need that in my life.
That'd be great. And it would upset the entire country if that happened. Can you imagine how toxic? It's not, no one's going to watch the World Series. It's two, LA, Orange County teams playing. They'd be so upset, so angry about that. But the Angels better get their act together, because this Dodger run is not going to last forever. At some point, they're going to end up going belly up. They can't keep this up. I mean, they've been a playoff team for pretty much a decade here. Every year they're a playoff team. Although if they keep adding wild cards, it is possible to continually make the play. I mean, at some point they're going to keep adding. Last year they added an extra wild card, and so if that happens, then the Dodgers are set up. But outside of that, they're not going to be able to punch their ticket to the playoffs every single year.
It has been a couple of years since we've talked for the podcast. When we did talk a couple of years ago, I think you were up to 632 nicknames. Or maybe just 39 or whatever it was. What is it up to now? You don't have to run them all down, but if you have some favorites.
I think I'm up to 49 now, official sanctioned nicknames, not to be confused with the non-sanctioned. I'm known as the spin master of misinformation, the bannering broadcaster, things like that. I like the Mad Hatter of Sports Chatter.
I like that one. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, ever since my hair started going away, I've become the Mad Hatter of Sports Chatter. More by need than anything else. And there's a bunch of, some of them other people have. Sage of Outrage, which has been used by many people. Moneyline Mallard, I like, because
I like that. Yeah, of course, as we embrace sports gambling in mainstream and in the culture.
Oh, and let me tell you, in my business, sports radio, this is the gold rush. This is, the next couple of years are going to be insanity with all of the gambling money that's entering as advertisers in sports radio. Oh my goodness, we are headed towards glorious times here for the next couple of years. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I got a bunch of nicknames. It's fun. We goof around with that. I don't actually use them that much, but I am, when I do something positive, because people accuse me of being negative. But when I do something positive, I am Benny Brightside. So that is the positive side. Everyone's got multiple personalities, Aaron, and I am Benny Brightside when things are looking up.
Of course, one of the ways that you and I know each other, in addition to my listening to you on the way home from work all those years when I was at KFI, we have a mutual friend, Jake Warner.
Yes.
Did you give him the Big Brother Jake nickname?
No, I didn't give him. Jake was a listener, and then he went to radio. I guess he went to school somewhere and studied broadcast. I don't remember where. And
I don't know if it was at Connecticut School of Broadcasting or
something. One of those type deals.
Yeah.
One of those type deals. And he showed up, and Jake. You know Jake. Jake's a very positive guy. I got to do his podcast. He wanted me on his podcast. We haven't been able to work it out. I got weird hours. I want to thank you, Aaron, for accommodating me.
Of course.
My schedule. When you look at my sleep pattern is completely messed up. It's upside down and all that. So I sleep when everyone's living life and having commerce, and then I'm up when no one's awake.
I know you haven't always done overnights, but you're going on what? Other than like a little break, an unpaid vacation, other than that little break, what, 15 years we're talking about here?
No, I think it's actually closer to 20 now.
Wow.
I did weekend overnights. I did like overnights 3 nights a week, 2 or 3 nights a week. And then I've had this schedule I'm on right now since 2014. So the last 7 years solid. And I did weekends before that on the overnight. And I ran a website, my website, benmallard.com. I did that overnight. Even it wasn't radio, obviously, but I would put the website, I would aggregate the sports news overnight, and then I would publish it in the morning.
For all the morning shows to get, yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly, to do the show prep for them, and then I go to bed.
Yeah, you're doing your show prep, exactly. You're doing their show prep, sorry.
Yes. There's a legendary story that I've heard from Arnie Spanier, the stinking genius who used to work out here and works at Fox on the weekends. And Arnie was a big fan of the website, and he went to press print one day at work, and it was like 800 pages or something like that. He didn't realize you don't want to print the whole thing, because the way the website was set up, it just kept going. And he just printed the whole thing, the complete archive of everything that I put on the website, which was like a gossip sports news type deal.
He should have it bound for you or something like that. Like here's that way it doesn't go to waste, at least.
Yeah. Well, internet stuff, it's there forever, but it's also gone forever. It's weird. Like the way the internet is. It's like stuff's there, but you got to be able to find it, and then it disappears. And I don't even own that website anymore. That website, somebody else owns my name, my domain name. I gave it up. Yeah, a couple of years ago.
What's there now? Should I go there now? Can I? Will it infect my system? Have you gone there lately?
I have not.
Let's go.
I think it was
benmallard.com.
Let's see here.
It's getting all kinds of redirects. Now it goes to a different website that I don't trust. I'm closing that browser window. I'm closing that browser window.
Well, because oddly enough, there were still people that were hoping that I would come back from my timeout from the website. That I would bring benmallard.com. So I guess there's still people that click on it, like trying to.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I would bring it back. Like everyone else, there is a price. And if the price is met, I would be more than happy to bring back that website. And boy, would that be fun.
Take me back to your blogging days. You got in very early. It was you, it was Drudge. And I want to say maybe just a handful of other people who would just say, hey, I heard this story. Boom. It was you, it was Drudge, and it was Fark. That was Fark, really, you and, was it Drew Curtis, I think? Who runs Fark, but either way, you got in very, very early on, and I'm wondering, like, I'm always fascinated. I've said this on the podcast before. I'm always fascinated by people who see a lane that's empty or not as occupied as they think it should be, and they're like, "Oh, I want to occupy that lane." Where'd that thinking come in?
Yeah, well, to start, I had a lot of time during the week. I was doing radio on the weekends, and during the week, I was looking for something to kind of get me going. And I loved finding stories and getting information that wasn't like readily available. I was kind of bored with the way there were sports websites in those days, but they were pretty generic. It was a lot of like Associated Press style reporting, where it was just the facts. And I was more into the gossip and the speculation. And so I knew that stuff was out there, and it was usually buried, in obscure locations. And I was like, well, I have a lot of time, and why don't I put it around? And I never really promoted my website. I just kind of did it. And then through word of mouth advertising, people found out about it, and it became a pretty big deal. At one point I was getting people, I think I told you when we talked before, people were sending me resumes. They wanted to join my staff on the website, and
your staff.
I was
your ever growing, workforce. You're like, by the way, if I added you That would then double the workforce.
Exactly. But I got a kick out of that. And then, it was good for my ego because I was able to see where people were watching, reading the website. And, I had people at the Pentagon and the White House that were reading the website. I was like, I don't know who they were. It could have been low-level people. It could have been, the janitor at the Pentagon, but it might have been somebody who controls tanks. I don't know. And so that was cool. And I saw, a lot of radio companies and TV, companies and things like that. So it was good for my ego and that people were enjoying it. I did get some positive feedback on it, but I have had a couple of buddies of mine that work at ESPN that every time I run into them, and I haven't seen them in years because of the COVID stuff, but they'd be like, man, everyone else cashed in on the internet. I didn't cash. Dave Spin cashed in. All these guys, even now, just was it a couple of weeks ago? Clay Travis, who I've worked with, who's replacing Limbaugh at Fox or at, on Limbaugh's show. He did a show for Fox. He sold Outkick to Fox and made a major amount of money. So they're still making money, but I guess I'm a bad businessman, Aaron. That's the lesson. I'm okay coming up with the content, but my business pedigree is not good.
Well, you helped usher in this era of covering the transaction, covering all the behind the scenes. Yeah, we talked hot stove in the baseball offseason, but that was really, by and large, the only offseason we ever talked about. It was only really for like a week or two at the owners' meetings or something like that. Now it's year round for all leagues, and I feel like you helped usher in that era.
Well, I appreciate that, but it is also just human nature. Like, you love the unknown, what might happen. And the great thing about trades is kind of like the draft. I've become cynical over the years on the NFL draft because I've been burnt.
Not just the NFL draft. Let's not get carried away. Like, I'm finally cynical about something.
Well, no, but my position has been, when I was a kid, as a night, through the eyes of a child, I was convinced every one of those players my team drafted was going to be God's gift to football or basketball. And what really turned it was actually the NBA as a Clipper apologist. And they kept drafting these guys that, All-American at Georgetown or greatest player in Big East history at Seton Hall. And these guys would get to the Clippers, and it's like they'd never dribbled a basketball before. And they were just terrible. And so I was like, year after year, I kept falling. I kept getting hornswoggled by this mindset of like, these guys are going to be great. And now as an adult, and we talk about the draft. Obviously, my business is in sports radio. It's a big deal to talk about the draft, and it kills a lot of content for several months. But my default position is, no, that guy's not going to be as good as advertised. No. And most of the time I'm right. Very rarely there's for every Patrick Mahomes, you have 15 Mitch Trubisky's that come in the draft. So that's just how that works. And so, generally down on the draft as a whole.
It's also been a while since we've talked. I know since we've talked, my wife passed away and your dad also passed away. How are you doing? How's your family doing?
Well, my condolences to you, first of all. My father was of the age where it was somewhat appropriate, although he was in good health. So, I'm doing okay. My life's kind of upside down right now. We're still, believe it or not, my dad passed away the second day of this year, 2021, and we're still dealing with lawyers. As I imagine you're doing similar things in your situation. I had. When my mom passed away, several years back, I didn't have to deal with that because my dad was still around.
Because exactly. Yes. I'm finding that out too. It's like, it's much easier when the spouse is there to take care of things, because all you have to do is call and be like, I'm the spouse. Oh, okay. We'll send this, that, and the other. Now, because of my wife's passing, I'm still in the process. Like, I've got a meeting tomorrow about my estate. Trust me, girls, daddy's not leaving you much. There's not much in the estate here. Okay. But it still needs to be determined, so that what I went through in the months immediately following Len's passing was much easier. I can't imagine the types of calls and all the red tape and all the other things that my in-laws would have to go through. Not to mention, I've got two daughters, 6 and 8, and it's not just like, oh, okay, I'm the spouse. Okay, they're mine. Well, no. Who's going to take? There's all kinds of things to go through, all kinds, and I had no idea.
Yeah, I was naive in my situation, and I feel for you going through that. It's just brutal. Just the logistics, like the basic stuff, for you is got to be just a struggle. But I got a pamphlet from the lawyers. I'm still, believe it or not, my father, the house I grew up in, I'm still going through all that and taking that. My mom kept almost everything from my childhood, and my dad,
it's the Mallard Museum.
Pretty much. And my dad, when he passed away, we determined that he wouldn't let me in certain parts of the house after my mom. He just stay downstairs, don't go upstairs. And then we determined that's because nothing had changed. It just kept, everything was exactly the same, except it had piled up more stuff. And so it's been a pain to kind of go through all that. But you keep going on, and you look forward to the future. But it is an eye-opening experience. The business of death, like the lawyers involved and all that. And I know from having people that work in the funeral industry that call the show, and they tell me stories and things. But when you're actually going through something, you're like, whoa, this is a whole new ball game.
Because then you've got to be like, okay, am I emotionally and mentally ready to make these calls today? And then also forgiving yourself if you're not, because I after Len passed, I said, because I knew, okay, I've got to make calls in the weeks following that. I can't just like call up. She passed away in mid-November. I can't call up in January. Like, okay, so here's the thing. My wife passed away 8 weeks ago. Oh, you should have called us 7 weeks ago. So, but I told myself I'm only going to do 1 or 2 things a day related to her death. Whether it's a phone call or the mortuary or whatever it is. And just forgiving myself for not doing more than that, but also understanding that even if I can't do 1 or 2 things, forgiving myself for that.
Yeah, you got to manage it, right? You got to manage it. You got to be able to, there's no perfect way to do it. That's the thing. I mean, and also I know people have written books, but I don't think those are really that helpful. I think when you're in the moment, to me, I think it's more, you got to figure out your own path here.
Yeah, the books are for, I feel like, when you're out of it, when you're past the shit, when you're knee deep in it, you just trying to kind of trudge through it, because the mental and emotional energy you spend reading a book on it, at that time at least, that could be better spent going toward whatever it is you need to, whatever phone call you need to make, whatever errand you need to run,
Yeah.
Now, I will say I have started reading books about it, but I feel like I'm in a better place now to take that in,
Yeah. Like I said, I think when it happens, I mean, any death, even when it's expected, is shocking, right? You still don't think it's actually going to happen. You like to believe, at least I always like to believe, even though I'm negative about sports, I like to believe, well, people are going to keep living, they're not going to, they're not going to check out. And then we're all going to check out, but there's no perfect time for that. And so I really commend what you've done, man. You've done a great job, Aaron, and my hat's off to you, because you've been in a tough spot, and you look good. You've gotten some sun a little bit. You're living your best life possible, considering everything that's happened to you.
Smoke and mirrors, man. That's all. It's just smoke, mirrors, and it's a Zoom filter. It's not just a green screen. It's all this. It's just to fool you. That's all.
I got to tell you, I have studio jealousy. Your studio is much better than mine. I am tremendously impressed with your setup. I have the sign behind me back here, and I have the light, but I don't really have the soundproofing. I had some soundproofing, but I had to relocate it. But you've gone like next level. You have network quality sound proofing, which is tremendous. And I'm going to have to upgrade my game to get up to the Aaron Bender podcast.
I just recently went to Vegas, just a quick up and back to pick up some studio equipment, some acoustic panels that I have not yet put up. But I will show the people for the first time ever.
Okay.
On these videos for the podcast, I will show the people what the studio looks like. So obviously we got a green screen behind me. Okay. I'm not going to turn that off, because I'm just going to show people. So over here, there's just a duvet we had in the cabinet that is now hanging from the wall there.
That's great. That's perfect. Because you want to suck up the sound.
Yep.
Obviously, that's
then another duvet comforter hanging from the ceiling there.
Wow.
And then there's another one over there. And then Green screen.
That is
There we
great.
go. That's
So
that setup right
all
there.
I need is to go buy like 3 duvets.
Goodwill, baby. Goodwill. If you
That's
don't
great.
have it already, Goodwill and some curtain hooks and nails.
Now the only question here, and this is a big one. I'm a sweater. I sweat like a pig. Okay, so
yes.
How hot is it? Because I get very hot in here. I'm in the middle of the night when it's not even hot outside.
Not too bad.
I'm sweating buckets.
Oh.
Now, the good thing is, like, I only am on camera for the monologues, so I can take a towel and cover the sweat when I'm. So I'm only on camera for like 20 minutes in the hour, and the rest of the time I'm free to.
So you've been doing this now at home for more than a year, right?
Yes.
So you've been able to do this during the summer. I haven't had a summer yet where I'm in an upstairs closet in Santa Clarita. So
wow.
I don't quite know yet how it's going to go, but I will tell you, look at this guy that I'm hoping is the lifesaver. Bam.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Air conditioning vent.
I hope you have solar panels for the air conditioning bill, but I
don't. That's the next step. That's the next step.
Yeah, you got to do it. I recommend buying them if you can. I know they're very expensive, but because we have some in our house, we lease them. We save a lot of money. But I think to resell stuff, you're better off with the.
I've been thinking about that. Like I'm thinking, even if we just get a few panels, like we don't even need just to run the studio. It's not even for everybody else. It's just like, all right, just run it straight in here, straight into the studio.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I've been doing it since I think we started sometime in early April, maybe even late March. The world shut down like March 13th, March 12th.
13th, 19th, somewhere around there, that second or third week. How was that transition for you? Because like you said, you work overnights. It's you and the janitor usually. And, Eddie's doing the updates and there's somebody running the board. So it's a skeleton crew anyway. But then when you do it from home, how was that adjustment for you?
Well, to start, when I remember when my boss called me up and said, "Listen, we're going to have you work from home." I built this studio because I was doing some stuff for a station in Boston, WEI, and I really hadn't used it. And then I started my own podcast, the 5th Hour podcast, and so I did the podcast in here, but that was it. And I remember telling my boss, I said, "Listen, I got into the radio because I love going to the radio station. I love and you're a radio guy, right? But there's a certain energy when you walk into the radio station. It's like it's cool, man. It's like this is where the magic happens, and it's exciting to be there. And there's a lot of activity. And then I always wanted that. And when I interned in San Diego at 690, I would like hang out there hours after my internship.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Because I just want to be part of the radio station. And so I didn't want to give that up, but now I'm in a different spot in my life where it's like, well, it's so convenient. I don't have to deal with Caltrans closing the freeway at night when I go to work. And I don't have to, I can't tell you how many drunk drivers I saw, how many wrong way drivers I saw on the highway over the years working overnight. It's crazy. So, as long as we can pull it up, I like it. I think it's the way of the future. I wouldn't be totally opposed to going back occasionally, but I think most of the time, I'll be locked in my home studio here going forward with the occasional rare and appropriate appearance in studio. But I don't see anybody. And when I'm there at night, there's no one around. There's two. I work at the Premier Building in Sherman Oaks, and the overnight shows are me and George Norrie. And George's got his own studio, which is up in the tower, and I'm on the first floor. I mean, the only time I see George is his car.
And, if you happen to park at the same time or something.
So I'll see that. He's got a better car than me. So coast to coast, we're making more money on coast to coast than they are on my show. But that's it. And other than that, there's just some engineers and people. And then the East Coast morning shows. It's pretty funny. I'll tell you, Steve Harvey, legendary entertainer. I'm a huge Steve Harvey fan. I love the guy. And so they built his studio across from the Fox Sports Radio studio. This is a few months before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so Steve was out here doing his TV show, and then he'd come in, and I actually met him a couple of times. He came in, but then once the pandemic started, that's it. He's never, I think he's back in Atlanta or something like that. But so the point is there's nobody there. So, yeah, I could get it. It would justify being there if there were actually other people that, it was important for me to be there. That's not the case.
Now, here's the thing, though, with people working from home, especially at an odd time like you do, your wife was used to you leaving the house at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And now it's like, oh, okay. Not only is he home, he's down the street screaming into down the hall, I should say, screaming into a microphone.
Yeah.
How was that transition for both of you?
Well, it's actually been all right because my wife has odd work hours too. She works as a 911 dispatcher. So she's on occasionally, they rotate their schedule every like 4 months or whatever it is at the police station. So she will work overnight some of the time. And then the tough thing is when she works during the day, and I'm barking, all night long.
Exactly.
And I'm like randomly, like I'll start singing, Aaron, no, 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 hey, goodbye.
And of course she can't hear any of it because there's no context for why you're now.
Yeah. I'm just a crazy person screaming into a microphone in a room. But see, now I'm going to get those duvets.
Yes, you got to get the duvets and comforters from Goodwill and just.
Yeah, because I don't have the good soundproofing here. I had some stuff and I didn't think it really worked that well, so I kind of got rid of it. And
yeah,
I know you get like carpeting helps, right? Soak up some of the sound. If you got carpeting, you can do that. And there's certain things, but yeah, I definitely have to cut down the noise factor. That's for
that.
sure.
And the if you go moving blankets would also help. Because I'm looking at this and I make no money on anything I do. So I'm looking online like DIY this and DIY that. And they're like comforters, pillows, any kind of blankets, any kind of towels. For a while there, I had a towel just draped over this desk. So anything you have around the house that you're not using just goes right up.
No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to upgrade my game. The only thing I'm concerned about, as I said, was the heat. Because I imagine being surrounded by blankets when it gets hot is going to make it like you're in a suntan booth. But yeah, that's all right.
Where in the house is it? Like, is it just a spare room or what's the?
Yeah, I have. It's kind of like a pass-through type situation. It's my office, but there's a door on each side, and so it goes out to the outside, and then you can go into the main part of the house here. And it's kind of tucked away on the side.
The Mallard Mansion.
Yes, the Mallard Mansion. Which is, it's a fun-size mansion. It's like you have a full-size candy bar and a fun-size candy bar. But
when's the last time you ate a full-size candy bar?
No. I occasionally on the weekends. I'm into that intermittent. I'm in the cult of intermittent fasting.
Are you still doing that? Because when we talked 2 years ago, it had just. I feel like intermittent fasting really kind of took off 2 or 3 years ago. But that when we talked, you had just lost a lot of the weight. What, 200 pounds, 180 pounds, or something like that.
Yeah.
Have you kept that off? And it's intermittent fasting still?
Well, I lost the weight without intermittent fasting. I then got married and gained some of the weight back. And then since then, I've lost the weight again.
Oh, congrats.
Because of intermittent fasting. And it's really, I think the rest, however long I have left in this world, I think I will be doing this until I check out, because it's just, for me, I cannot, like a lot of people can eat and they can cut calories and eat just a little, I can't. I got to eat everything. When I eat a meal, I've got to eat a good hearty meal, and it's got to stick to my bones. And so, I've been fasting. I usually do now my latest schedule. I
was going to ask about the schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll fast at the minimum on the weekends. I'll do 16 hours, but during the week I do 2 47 to 48 hour fasts during the week.
Oh, really? So like Monday and Tuesday don't eat. Wednesday it's on. That kind of thing.
Today, Monday, I'm not eating today. I ate yesterday, Sunday afternoon. I ate at probably 3 o'clock, and then I'll eat Tuesday. I'll eat at like 3 or 4 o'clock, and then I'll eat on Wednesday around the same time, and then I'll fast on Thursday, and then on the weekends. Now, the wife does not enjoy the intermittent fasting as much. She is not a believer in it, and it bothers her because I usually I have to fast for at least 16 hours, and so on the weekends I'll have to eat like back-to-back meals, kind of. I'm going to get 2 meals in, because then I have to get my 16 hours to eat at a reasonable hour the next day, so it becomes problematic. So sometimes I'll only eat once on the weekends also. But
I'll try to do usually like a 12 to 16 just on a regular basis.
Mhm.
I'll do, and I do kind of modify it somewhat. I'll have a cup of coffee when I wake up, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Yes, it's got cream in it. Uh, don't at me, people. Yeah, because the intermittent fasters are going to come after me. But I'll do some coffee and cream at about like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And then I usually don't eat breakfast until what would otherwise be lunchtime, 11:30, 12, 1 o'clock. And then I'll do some sort of dinner later that day. And then, it starts another 12 to 16 after that.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I remember when I was younger, there was this guy, Biff Elliott, this old Hollywood character actor, Biff Elliott, who was a radio reporter at the end of his life. And he told me, he's all, just don't eat. I was fat and he was trying to help me out. He said, just don't eat 3 hours before you go to bed. He said that,
That's his thing.
That was his thing back in the day. And they do tell you that. I remember I pitched some weight loss products back in the day, and that was their whole gimmick, was to, drink this and then don't eat 3 hours before bed, you'll lose weight. But if you really don't eat 3 hours before bed, it doesn't matter if any, the concoction they come up with, you're just going to lose weight on that alone.
Yeah, that. And also once you wake up, you don't eat for another 3 or 4 or 5 hours, then you're good. You're going to lose some amount of weight. It's not, it may not be as much as you want, or as much as you think you should be losing, but you're going to lose something like that.
Well, also, I remember the whole breakfast thing, right? That's a scam, right?
Oh, the most important meal of the day.
Yeah. That's one of the great marketing scams of all time. And
thank you, Kellogg's.
Yeah, they had to sell cereal, and it's so ingrained in people's minds, like, you have to eat breakfast. It's the most important, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. You don't have to eat breakfast. And people used to eat breakfast. They would eat leftovers from the night before. And I've read a bunch of stuff online. I don't know what's true or not, but I read, like, in the early days of humans, that people would not they'd go out hunting, but they wouldn't always catch something. So they wouldn't always have food to eat. So they'd sometimes go days without eating. People think, like, there were, hunters would go out and every time they went out, they'd get a kill and they'd be able to eat. And it's like, no, they probably were successful maybe at most 20% of the time. Yeah. And so the rest of the time they had to eat whatever they could or not eat at all. So.
Or maybe they get enough just to sustain the hunt. They get a squirrel, or they get, something that they're not dragging a squirrel back to camp.
Exactly. So it's, you look at things like that, but hey, whatever works for you anyway, as long as you're trying to be healthy, I guess. I never worried about that up until a few years ago. So maybe about 10 years, but my 20s and 30s, I didn't care about any of that stuff.
So whenever I talk to an overnight guy or gal, I'll always find out, because I think listeners are fascinated about sleep schedules. We've talked about the eating. What is your sleep schedule?
Well, it's pretty messed up. I
almost 20 years in, still messed up.
Yeah. I like to wind down. I get pretty worked up when I'm doing the show, so I can't just.
People don't understand that you don't just turn off the mic and go to sleep.
Yeah, I got to wind down. So I get off. My show ends at 3 a.m. Usually I have some other stuff I have to take care of, whether it's interviews I have to do with our affiliates around the country, or things like that. Yeah. So I'll do that. I'll be done by 4 a.m, and then I'll usually end up winding down for a couple hours. But by then I get caught reading stuff on the internet. By the time I go to bed, it's usually like 7:30 or 8 a.m, and then I don't sleep long though. I only sleep about 4.5 hours. So I'm usually up. Yeah, I'm usually up by like 1 o'clock most of the time. I'll go to bed 8:30. Get up.
Have you just always been that way, or it's just with the overnights, it's just like that's what you've settled into?
I blame my parents. My parents were not good sleepers. I inherited that from them.
Hey, we just went over this. They're not around to defend themselves. And here you are throwing them at, yeah.
Well, fortunately, my dad, before he checked out, I did tell him that. And he of course said, no, you got that from your mother. So yeah, he said that. But
so you get the throwing under the bus. You get that also from them as well. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like I on the weekends I have like a sleep aid, so I'll sleep more on the weekends than but the only way I can sleep a legitimate amount of time is if I'm drugged in some way. But I don't want to be addicted to that stuff. So I only do it occasionally on the weekends to try to get caught up on sleep, which I don't think is actually a real thing. I don't think you can actually get caught up on sleep. I think that's bullcrap, but so what?
It's brought to you by the same people who tell you that breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Yeah, it's all about marketing, man. That's what it's all about, Aaron, right? It's all about slick marketing. First in the mind, right? You gotta be first in the mind. People form their opinion. They don't want to change their opinion. It just gets passed down generation to generation. It's wild.
The idea, and just to kind of put a bow on the, go back to sports, kind of bookend this. What do you make of the idea of athletes and their platforms? And we had just recently Naomi Osaka withdrawing from the French Open because of mental health issues. You had, of course, last year, all of the athletes coming out after George Floyd's death and everything. When we were growing up watching sports, you had very few athletes using their platform. I talked about it with Ted Sobel recently. You had Muhammad Ali, you had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you had Jim Brown. And for decades, it was really just those three. And now athletes are actually expected to come out and have an opinion on almost anything that's happening in society.
Yeah, well, I don't like it. I mean, because it's obviously not what I grew up with. And, it seems like this is a bad path to go down and I'll tell you why. The whole model of sports, professional sports, is, I'll use a phrase that's been used a lot recently, a safe space, right? That you can go to a ballpark or an arena, and it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're team red or team blue. You can go there and, everyone's united for one common goal. And you don't have to be, have this knocked over your head. LeBron James believes in so-and-so, and it looks like there's no going back to that. I don't think it's good. I know the NBA in particular that went full woke, and they had the slogans on the court and the uniforms and all that. They have lost a ton of money. And I was just reading a story today about the debt of the NBA and where it is now. And part of it's just the pandemic in general. But I know from people that work in the NBA that have told me, like, the reason you don't see the slogans this year and all that is not that all of a sudden the world's been fixed of these issues. It was bad for business, and it was affecting the bottom line of the NBA. And so they've taken all those slogans off the court and the uniforms this year, hoping to get people to come back. But yeah, I mean, I grew up watching sports, and I didn't know Michael Jordan. I didn't know anything about Jordan's politics. I didn't care about Jordan's politics. I just cared about how he played basketball. And I think one of the problems also is these sports leagues are way too obsessed with social media, and they think that that's real. And it's not. It's like the Matrix, it's you don't know what's real and what's not real. And there was a story I was reading in, I think it was the Wall Street Journal. Look at you with the to be fair, I don't subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. A listener sent me the story.
Okay.
But
you're like, let's not get carried away here.
Yeah. So there was some FCC fairness doctrine situation, like, that was being adjudicated. I don't remember the details. I'm giving you the bare bones recap, but they did an audit of online posts, and they determined that it was like 80 to 90% of the posts were bots.
They're just bots. Yes.
That people were buying to try to sway politicians, and the politicians were falling for it. I mean, so it works because you don't know what's real and what's not real. And there's people making millions of dollars online by swaying the opinion of people that believe what they're seeing is legitimate, and it's not. And I don't know about you, but my experience from the online world to just out and about, people's opinions are much different in the real world, at least I see, than the online world. So I'm a big skeptic of that. But listen, sports has gone down this path. The people who run sports seem to be okay with it. And if they're going to cut down their audience, if they're okay with that, that's fine. It's going to hurt guys like me that make our living in sports, because we want everyone to be part of it. And I've gotten a lot of people say, I like your show, but I can't watch so-and-so because of his political beliefs or whatever.
Well, what's interesting is that you got you have somebody like LeBron James who made comments about China a couple of years ago or whatever it was, and then was ridiculed for it. So you gotta imagine, like, okay, the opinions of somebody like LeBron James that we're hearing going forward are not necessarily everything he thinks, because he might be running it through that China filter and saying, I can't afford to go down that road again. So let's give people the opinions that they want to hear that will boost my image, not necessarily, how I really feel on everything.
Well, and LeBron also has a lot of people around. He is a key figure for the Democratic side, right? He's a very popular player. And if they want to get a message out, they can filter it through LeBron James to get the message out. And, you use the word pawn, but it cut those pawns on both sides of the.
He's King James, world. Ben. He's King James.
I understand. I understand. But the China thing. Oh my God, what a debacle! And even listen, LeBron, he likes to brag. You ask him, he'll say, "I'm educated. I don't just say these things. I do my homework." And then we had the situation in Ohio where he tried to dox the police officer who did a great thing, saved someone's life who was, potentially going to be murdered by someone else. And LeBron really stepped in on that one. So he's done that a few times over the years. But hey, he's good for business. As much as I have this love-hate thing with LeBron. I love when the Lakers lost because I'm not a LeBron fan, but
it's content. It's content.
I talk about LeBron a lot. I need more people like LeBron because it's much easier to talk about him than guys that don't move the needle. If people get a reaction, as you know, Aaron, you want to get a reaction, and LeBron James gives people a reaction, whether they like him or they hate him.
Let's go back to content. The idea that you overnight, you have a decision to make. You can either roll through it, all of it solo. You've got 12 or 16 segments to fill, or 20, whatever it is. You can roll through it solo, a la Rush Limbaugh to a certain degree, Jim Rome to a certain degree, and maybe take some calls here and there. But I feel like you've done a really, really good job of finding that balance of, I'm the host. You're going to hear a lot about what I have to say, but I'm going to make sure callers are a big part of the show as well. And I feel like you've really found that balance. How long do you feel like that took you to really, kind of find your groove?
Yeah, it took a long time. I mean, I was able to hide out on the weekends. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. But I was able to hide out on the weekends, Aaron, and really try different things, and like throwing spaghetti against the wall, seeing what's stuck to the wall and what I liked and what I thought sounded good. And really, the ultimate thing here is you have to do the kind of show you would want to listen to. So I was like, well, would I want to hear this? And it's like, I like the callers, but I don't want too much of the callers. And if the callers are going to be part of the show, I want them to be, not just generic brand callers. I want something that stands out a little bit. And we've developed the Mallard Militia, this whack pack of people that call the show that are very loyal. My minions who follow me around, whether it's beer drinking Brian in Kansas City, or we have a drag queen caller from Rochester, Buffalo, some strange characters in the night. And I think I've determined the reason they all find me is because there's hardly anyone else taking calls. Like pretty much everyone.
Well, by now they're all on tape. A lot of the overnight stuff, even more so than before. I mean, don't get it twisted. Radio has spent a lot of time overnight on tape, so it's not as if that's something new, but it's certainly more common now than ever before.
Yeah, and even during the day, most shows don't take a lot of calls or any calls because it's just consultants say it's bad. And I get it. I understand. You want professionals on the radio. But I don't have any guests. Like I could come in. People ask me, like, why don't you have guests on? And I could come in, but it's the whole tape thing. I don't want to. To me, that's more of a podcast thing. I do a podcast and I do some interviews on that. But the reality is that for me, it's like, I want to do the show live. I think the cool thing about being on at night is people are alone, they're working, they can't sleep, they've got insomnia. And it's kind of cool to know that there's another human being that's up at the same time you're awake, and you're not alone. You're not completely alone. There's some other idiot out there who's who's awake and talking and all that stuff. So, but yeah, it is by trial and error, and you have to find the right formula, the right recipe. And I've got a pretty good recipe, but you still gotta fine tune it, right? You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. You got to try to keep it fresh and vibrant and alive. Otherwise, you get replaced. So that's always the battle. It's always the battle. It's like, well, it's good, but can it be better?
You also need support from management, who we all understand they don't really listen, overnights. But at the same time, you need them to say, hey, you've got time, figure it out. You've got, like a college coach, you've got 3 or 4 or 5 years or whatever to kind of figure it out. Maybe not that long, but the leash is a little bit longer, because they're like, hey, he's got to find this balance. He's got to find his groove.
Yeah, and my bosses have been really cool. I know I have one boss that stays up late, that goes to bed. He tells me, he's like, by 1 a.m, he's gone. So I can really do the more risque stuff
after 1 o'clock
in the morning.
All right, so you can listen to the Ben Mallard Show overnights on Fox Sports Radio, but especially after 1 o'clock Pacific.
Yes, that's when it gets good. That's when the good stuff comes out there. And it is odd, though, the way it works, because I actually have more people listening the last hour, because it's 5 a.m. I got those early East Coast people that are going to work. They're trying to get the jump on traffic. So it's weird. Like, it took me a while to kind of process that, because, in California, where we are here in LA, it's like there's not much going on at 2 a.m. But in Boston, there's people leaving their house trying to get the jump on the traffic going into work, or Atlanta or Miami or whatever. So it's an interesting thing how that clock works, and how there's more people listening when it's like the West Coast goes to bed completely, and then the East Coast kind of wakes up and gets their day started.
This is the third time, by my count at least, third time that Ben Mallard has been on this podcast. 2 were just by name. First off, Jake Warner. We've already talked about Big Brother Jake. Of course, he and I talked about you in the episode we did together. And then also, your name came up while I was talking with Andy Reesmeyer, one of the hosts of KTLA 5 Live.
Really?
Because he is also blocked by William Shatner on Twitter. And he worked with William Shatner. He worked on a show with him, and then all of a sudden he says the entire crew was just blocked.
Oh, well, that's one of the great, that's a good story. By the way, we have an update, Aaron. Now, a listener, I don't even know if it was a listener of mine, somebody paid William Shatner to unblock me on Twitter. Yeah. Shatner had me blocked for several years, and he was trying to generate money for his, I guess he does a horse charity in Burbank or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's a big equestrian guy. Okay.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
So he had all these things on his website to auction off to raise money for horses, and somehow my name came up there, and somebody cut a check to the charity, and he unblocked me on Twitter. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, isn't that crazy? So I've been blocked and unblocked, but I might have told you on the last podcast, but it's been a couple of years. So one of the great nights of my career in radio was William Shatner on a flight from LAX to Germany. He was flying overnight, like a red-eye flight, and he blocked me and a bunch of other people, and he was in such a hurry. He was all he was doing was playing on his phone on Twitter on the flight to Germany, and he kept blocking everyone from my show. So I say, hey, they were like, hey, William, Ben Mallard says hello or whatever. Wow. And so he would block. But he was in such a hurry to block these people, he actually started by accident clicking the follow button. So I had like the janitor, the truck driver, the random security guard that were getting followed by William Shatner by mistake, because he was in such a hurry, he was in such a panic that he was accidentally hitting the follow button instead of the block button. It was pretty funny.
That's tremendous. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Ben, you and I have been friends for many years. I cannot thank you enough for all your support over the years, especially the last year and a half. And I love knowing that I could pick up the phone and call you. I love knowing that I can, send you a text. and you're going to reply. And I know that if I ask you to be on whatever I'm working on, you're going to say yes. And that's huge, man. That's huge. So thank you. I really appreciate it, man.
Well, listen, a mutual admiration. I am a big fan of yours. I listened to you all those years on KFI. I thought you were wonderful. You're great. There's people on radio, but there's only a small percentage of those people that are good at radio. And,
thank you, man.
You're in that group. And so I honor people that are really good at their job, and you're one of those people. So, and plus, I mean, you've been through, your life has been an upside down. I commend you on keeping your head above water here, because it's been crazy. And so, continued success and upward and onward for you, and big things hopefully in the future.
Talk to you soon, Ben, and we'll listen to you on the radio, Fox Sports Radio overnights. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for watching the Aaron Bender podcast, whether it's on YouTube or DB&A TV, streaming at dbandatelevision.com nightly at 11 p.m. Pacific, 2 a.m. Eastern, or the DB&A TV app that's on Amazon, Roku, and Apple TV. You can email me your guest ideas or comments, aaronbendermedia@gmail.com. Find all my social media at aaronbender.com. Be well, and thanks for watching.